Hello everyone and welcome to the webinar for the September release of HelloID. Due to the holiday, the setup of this webinar will be a bit different from the previous webinars. Every domain expert will discuss the newly added features of his own domain. If you have any questions, please just place them in the chat and we will answer these questions as soon as possible. Let's start with the demo of the newly added features in the access management domain. Today there are 3 items I would like to show you. The first item that has been added is the Remember MFA on Device option. With this option, it is possible to remember or trust a device for a fixed amount of days. You can find this setting in Security, 2FA, Management. Keep in mind that this is only working for the new multi-factor authentication. The old legacy options won't work. If you enable the Remember MFA, you can set up the amount of days which the MFA could be remembered. If I apply this setting, it's saved and added, and when I go to the user interface on another browser, I can log on, and in the MFA prompt there's a new checkbox, Remember Me. This checkbox is on by default and the user could turn it off. Now when I log on and close the browser, the multi-factor authentication will be automatically be skipped for a day. If I log off, however, I have to redo the multi-factor authentication. Also keep in mind that you can only remember one multi-factor authentication user on each browser session, so it's not possible to store multiple sessions in one screen. Also, one important part about this setting is that it can be combined with the sign-on policies. If you combine this setting, enable Remember Me for end users and the enable Remember multi-factor authentication, this is a passwordless logon, so this might cause a security risk. So please be aware if you make this kind of setups. Our next change is that we added certificate warnings to the incident overview. As you can see on the dashboard, an incident will be created when a certificate will expire or has been expired. Currently, these incidents are not controlled yet by enabling or disabling the sliders in the Show Certificate Usage window. This means that if you close the incident manually and the certificate is still expired or about to expire, a new incident will be logged the next day. Please keep in mind that it also might take a day before the certificate usage has been renewed. The last item I would like to show you is a new audit login for the application window. Let's start by creating a new application. We edit it. And then finally I delete the application. When browsing to the reporting overview, we can see in the report management, by going to access management and then discover, that some audit logged rules are posted. As you can see here, the delete action is logged. The deletion has been done by administrator. There was a plugin application named Google and the action was deleted, as well as the update and of course the create. Please keep in mind that this audit log does not contain the contents of an update, so you can only see who did the change, you cannot see what the change was. This might be added in the future, but for now we just add the audit logging so you can actually see which user touched an application. For now, this was the demo for access management. Next up is the service automation domain. For this I will hand over the presentation to my colleague from the service automation team. Thank you very much so far for your attention.
We will now demonstrate the release items for service automation. Please feel free to ask your questions in the live chat. I want to start with a feature for the mail domain selector in the default set email task when configuring your product. So let's go to products. I will select an existing one, for example, Citrix, and go to actions. We'll search for the default send email task and we will add this task. Now with this new feature, you can use a custom from address, but when you enable this, you can only enter your prefix and you have to select one of the verified mail domains as suffix. So you cannot enter any complete mail address yourself anymore. You can only enter the prefix. Still, you can use IntelliSense, so you can use manager, for example, contact email. Then the mail domains are gone because now it's supposed to be a complete mail address. This manager.contact email, but be aware if the manager doesn't have a verified mail domain as a contact email, the email still does not get sent. However, you will get a error on your task. So in your task history, you can see it and there is a explanation why the mail could not be sent. And that's because in this case, then the mail domain is not verified. So when you remove this, you still have your prefix you can enter and your selection of the verified mail domains. This is a nice feature, a small one, but it's nice to start with. The next item I want to show you is the HelloID Service Automation Cloud Agent. This is a new agent which is available in this new release. And you can use this cloud agent for your Powershell data sources and also to run the delegated form integration scripts. But now I want to start with a demo for the Powershell data source in the cloud. So we will make a simple delegated form. So go to create delegated form. I will call it HelloID reports products. Yeah, let me create this form. Then we will go to the form and add a grid. For this grid, I will use a PowerShell data source that will run on the cloud agent, and the PowerShell script will use the HelloID API to retrieve all the products available in my environment and will return the data and show it in the grid. But of course, you can use any cloud connectivity with this cloud agent, so you can call any API or web service or cloud available connection. So let's go to edit and we'll go to data source, HelloID reports products, and it's a PowerShell data source. For this data source, you don't need any inputs. So we go to the PowerShell script window. I've prepared a simple script, and we can use this here. So this script will use the portal base URL of this environment. It will also use the API basic authentication string provided automatically to your script. And just for information, it will also return the server name. So here we can see our new feature. Run on Cloud Agent. It's by default on. I can also switch it off, and then I can choose my agent pool. But let's first use the Cloud Agent. Well, the script is ready. It should return all the products. It should return a server name and a product count. So let's execute the script. And it's done. As you can see, it has returned the products. So the data is there. Received logs. You see that the server name is one of our cloud agents, and it also puts back some information about the number of products found, and that is 31 in this example. And if I switch off this toggle, then it will run on one of my agent pools, and I can execute the script again. I still have 31 products, but now I can see it's a different server name. This is my local server, which runs the HelloID service automation agent. So now you can use the HelloID cloud agent or your local agent, just depending on your needs. And by default, if you create a new data source, it will be enabled. So it will always be the cloud agent by default. So if I save this form, I go to update fields, and now we go to switch to editor. It will load the results, and you can see the details. So this was our first new feature using the HelloID Service Automation Cloud Agent. There's another feature, namely importing delegated form integration scripts that also will use the Cloud Agent now by default. I will do a quick demonstration of that feature as well. So we go to Delegated Forms. We go to Import External Template. And here in this overview, you can select one of your favorite delegated forms to be imported. Well, now for this example, we just choose the first one. For each delegated form, there will be a complete script, a PowerShell script available that will do the import of this particular form, and it will use the API of HelloID to do that. In the previous release, this PowerShell script needed your local service automation agent in order to run. But now in this new release, it will always use the HelloID Cloud Agent. So you don't need to have your service automation agents running to use this feature, to use these forms. For demo purposes, I will not import this form in my environment, but I will just output the server name that is executing this simple PowerShell script. And so if I press on execute, I will see that the Cloud Agent service, so one of the agents in the cloud, has run this script. There's nothing you have to configure for that. It's now by default always the Cloud Agent. So that's something nice. Let's go to the dashboard of HelloID. On this admin dashboard, you will see your license information per module. You will also see the license count per module in a graphical interface. And below that, you have a panel with your open incidents. And these can be any type of incidents for HelloID environment in general, or for particular your HelloID instance. So for example, this first one indicates that for access management, my proactive application the certificate that has been used is expired. So this is an open incident for that notification. And with this new release, we also added a new incident to this overview whenever the service automation agent is down. So a new instance will be created when the agent is down. It will indicate with a identifier which agent it is. And whenever the agent is back online, the incident will be automatically be closed. And using the notification mechanism of this incident screen, you can configure this in the settings and your company settings. You can subscribe to specific instance by these tags, or you can just subscribe to any incident, so you will be notified by email whenever a new incident is created. But currently, as you can see, there is no incident for my service automation agent because it's online. So I will navigate to my server on my second screen, and I will shut down the service automation agent. So that has been done. Then we will refresh this page. And as you can see, the service automation agent has been disconnected. It has a different tag. We can click on the details. So you can also see a unique identifier for this agent. So whenever you have multiple agents, each agent will have a unique identifier, and per agent, a message will be created if that particular agent is down. You can manually resolve this incident, or you can just start the agent again. That's what I am doing right now. And the incident will be automatically be closed. So I'll refresh this page. I'll navigate to the incidents, and now you can see the incident is not there anymore. I can go to the closed incidents. This is the incident. It was opened 2 minutes past 3, and it's also closed at the same minute actually. So this is our final new feature for this release that I wanted to demo you. We will continue this webinar with our next module, provisioning.
Welcome to the provisioning part of this webinar. I have a few items I would like to discuss. First of all, the change we've been made to the Powershell source connector. I would show you in this portal. Once you go to the System tab, in the previous release, there were two text areas specified in here, which contain the person scripting and a separate one for the department scripting. Those have now been removed and being replaced by two buttons. So those two buttons act in the same way. And for example, when we open the persons, you could see that the initial PowerShell script, as in the text area was before, is now being presented in this dialog. With this new feature, we also introduced the preview functionality. And this was already in our target connectors, but we now also have this in the source connector. And with this preview button, we can try to execute the source data, to import the source data or the raw data. And it will represent you a list of data coming from your source script. So this will only be presented once there's data coming from the source. There's a minor limitation on this screen. The result set will automatically contain only the first 10. So the top 10 results will be displayed in this overview. In some cases, you will have more than 10 results coming. So once there are more results coming, we will show a warning message, which indicates that we're only showing the first 10 results of the total data set. It works in the same way as we did with the target. In the target connector, there was some dry run logic to be configured. And once the dry run logic is configured, the preview button will act in the same way. So with this condition, you can use this button for preview purposes. Another tab we also introduced is our logging. And with this logging screen, We had this before already on snapshot level, but we're now also presenting this on source level. And with this logging screen, you can easily identify when you're configuring or building a new source connector if everything is working correct. The result set in this is limited to being shown the last 3 imports, as we have in a remark over here. So from the last 3 imports, you can see the logging from the source connector. And another minor improvement we did, or minor, it's typically, it's a minor improvement, is that in the previous release of HelloID, when a new source connector, new PowerShell source connector was added, HelloID would automatically trigger an import of the data. That's going to happen automatically. Well, with this new release, it has been replaced by a button, and this button is called import raw data. So when a new system is added, a non-initial import will be triggered. So you have to import it manually to receive the raw data. This can be very useful when a new connector is being built or you're configuring or changing the script on a new connector. Because the data from raw data import will not interference with the current person set. So in the case there are multiple sources to be configured, the raw data before it's imported into a snapshot will not interfere or create any new persons. So up front you could analyze the data, check the raw data, see if everyone is correct, configure the mapping, and once it's all set and being done, then a new import could be triggered to create a snapshot. The next item in this session is the show reason why an action is triggered, as we call it in HelloID, the origin. This is a newly introduced column, which is visible in the evaluation and enforcement overview. So as you can see, I did triggered an enforcement, and there is an origin. And we also have the same in the evaluation. So you could also use this functionality to see changes, what caused the change up front before the enforcement has been started. This column will indicate the origin, so what caused the action to start a process. This process, for example, an account create. And for this one, a business logic change been made to grant an account. So you could see that there is a modification on a business rule by changing one of the conditions, or even add some new entitlements into a business rule, which calls for this person to trigger an account create process. This has not only been triggered by an account create, this could also depend for other actions as well. So for example, an account update, permission grant, revoke account access, and all of the other processes. So this will indicate that if some source data has been changed and HelloID will import the new data into the HelloID vault, there could also be an origin started for an update account. So then you could see that the origin of this was that the entitlement has been triggered because of change in contract data or person data. Well, the next item and also the last one is the new enforcement action overview, which has been a little bit redesigned. So if we go to the entitlement screen, you could see that the tab layout here in the top has been changed. Previously, this was only an overview tab with all the actions being presented. This has now been changed, so this will only show the granted entitlement. And that's also the reason why we removed the state column from this screen, because this screen now only contains granted entitlements. Other actions has been moved to the other tabs. One of this is the action tab or the history tab. If we have a closer look at the history tab, you could see that there is also the origin column has been introduced. And in this, you could see that the business logic for this was responsible for the grant of an account, which triggered in a success result. A minor change on this one is that we have added the information. Oh, sorry, this is the wrong screen. It's from the granted one. In this we could see the information about an account, and in this you could see that the last action which has been triggered was a grant, and this is related to all of the processes related to the user. The enforcement action overview, it's been a lot of redesign functionality, so a lot of changes have been made. To see this in live, we have to change some of my business rules. So I prepared an example rule. For this example, I'm going to add some new entitlements. And for example, if we select an account and an account access for a system, and we also do the same for another system. So I would like to simulate the process of creating a lot of new accounts and assigning them a lot of permissions. Once we go to the evaluation screen and I start a new evaluation, that in this evaluation you would see that there is a permission being granted by a change of business logic, because I added a new entitlement inside my business rule, and the operation state is to add a new entitlement. Before I enforce this one, I would like to show another feature, and that's the auto refresh of the overviews. And this is available in the granted page, but also in the action and history tab as well. Once we click this one, you could see there is a toggle, and this toggle button would enable or disable the auto refresh for the screen. Be aware that the settings for the auto refresh will be stored in local browser cache. So if you use a browser and you enable it, it will not be automatically be available in another browser. So it's related to the local browser cache in which the HelloID portal has been opened. Once I switch this one to on, you should see that there is a refresh icon is colored in blue, and this means that once this icon is blue, auto refresh for this screen has been enabled. We'll auto refresh the screen, and if we go into the disable action, it will turn back into gray. So in this state, the auto refresh has been disabled. I will leave it disabled right now because I would show you some other functionalities with this refresh as well in the next steps. Just change my business rules. I run an evaluation and I can see up front that a lot of permissions has been added or would be added. I could also see that a lot of, maybe it's too much. Yeah, there's too much data on the screen to see the account creates, but there are also account creates as well in here. So for now, I start an enforcement, and this will trigger the processes. And when we switch over to the screen, you should also see that there is a new markup for some lines. And this one, it's in italic markup. This will indicate that the process is currently ongoing. And you could see that with the clock icon. So there is an entitlement expected to be granted. And also due to this play icon. And this play icon will show you the same for an entitlement which is currently being processed. We still have the normal markup without the italic text, clock icon, and play buttons as well. And that's the overview in which the already granted entitlements are shown. So this Powershell entitlement is already been granted by the system. Due to the disable of my auto refresh, you should also see there is a light bulb indicator here on top. And this means that the data I'm currently looking at is not actual. So there are new changes which are available for this screen but are not already being presented. So I have to refresh it manually by clicking on this one. And once I click this, you see the italic lines are now being disappeared. So there are more changes already processed than there are currently pending. You can also have a look at the action overview. Okay, maybe this is already empty due to a lot of actions which will execute it really quick. So I will start the revoke process later on to show the new functionalities on this screen. We also have the history page or the history tab. And in this you could see the history of all the evaluations or the enforcements as being processed. This screen will only show 5,000 entitlement actions. So if you would like to see more specific, you have to use one of the filter conditions which were already available on the screen. But the overview on the screen will display a maximum amount of 3 months in history data. So 3 months of data will be visible in this screen, and afterwards it's not there anymore. You could also see that we moved our retry button, and the retry button was previously in the overview page, which we now have been placed in the history tab. And this is just a small improvement on the screen layout, because on the granted page we already introduced a log tab, and in the log tab you could see, as I previously mentioned, there is last action was grant, but we also have a new force update permission or force update account related to the type of entitlement you're working with. And this button makes it possible to only update a specific permission for a specific user, or only a specific account, one single account for a specific user. The force update accounts button is still available on target systems, and this will result in the same as that's doing before. So it will trigger an update for all granted accounts from the related system. And this button is only related to a single user object. Now, if we go back to the business rules and I remove the current assigned entitlements, that's just for the action overview to show you some data, is if we restart an enforcement by revoking all of these entitlements, is that when we trigger the enforcement and we go to the entitlement screen, to the action tab, you could see that there is a live overview of actions, actions that are currently being processed or being evaluated. I can refresh this one, then you can see that some of them are change to running as well. I have to wait a little bit longer. Maybe there are some actions. Yeah, you can see here some processes are currently running. So the status will indicate that this process is currently being executed by HelloID. The action is triggered by the change of a business rule, because I modified the entitlements inside the business rule. We still have the operation, so if it's a grant or a revoke, and you can see the status into running, and this is because it's currently being progressed by HelloID. We also have the waiting state, and this is waiting because there is a dependency, and a dependency I triggered by adding multiple target systems. So one target system was dependent on the other one, and the dependency is now waiting for the action to be completed before the dependent action could be started. So that's why the waiting indicator is here. Now if we go back, you see more of these processes has been changed and their status has been updated. So all of them are now running or waiting. And once this, all of the processes by HelloID have been executed successfully, then the screen should be empty. So there should be no waiting or no running actions anymore. It could cause a waiting action because there is a dependency which not already exists. So there is an action waiting on a dependent account which is not being granted by a business rule, and then you can end up have some waiting states. But for now it's automatically refreshing the screen, and we have a small scroll bar in here. So I hope when I refresh this one, yeah, we're almost done. That means when we are refreshing it again, then this screen should be automatically be empty, but the scroll bar is already been gone. So a lot of my processes have been executed successfully. And I will try one more time. Now it's still in a waiting state, but if we go to the history, you could see all the revokes have been successfully completed. So once an action completed successfully, or there is an error or a failure, the record will automatically show up in the history tab, which can be used to identify any issues related to a system.
We reached the end of this webinar. For the full list of released items, please check our roadmap page. Everybody, thank you for watching this webinar.